So it's time for that next adventure. But did you forget the most critical thing? Your recovery gear? Even on the most timid adventures, recovery gear is essential. You never know when you're going to go get stuck. And it doesn't matter the season either. You never know when you're going to go get stuck in mud, snow, or even sand. And trust me, this is coming from someone who's used recovery gear a lot. This Forester has been through everything, and I've pushed it to its limits, where at times we definitely needed the recovery gear to get out. So today I'm going to be going through the recovery gear that I always have in my Subaru Forester. And here is my recovery kit in my Forester. So what we'll do is we'll walk through each item here, and I'll talk about why I chose it and how we use it. So starting over here, these are soft shackles. There's a couple different ways to attach rope and stuff to your vehicle, but soft shackles are my preferred method. As you guys know, there is also D-rings. I find D-rings, if they break or if people leave them on the car, they'll eventually wear down. And what can happen is when you need it most in a recovery, it's going to become a projectile and fling its way across the recovery area, and it could damage cars, it could hurt someone. So I find soft shackles are the way to go. The reason I have a couple different kinds is because, well, some cars, particularly Subarus, have some very small recovery points, so I have to use this little yellow one. But if I'm doing something like attaching their next item to a tree or working with something bigger, or on my Forester where I have bigger recovery points, I got these soft shackles. So with that being said, that moves us to our next item. This little guy right here, this is a snatch ring. Again, there's a few different options for recovery, and people like snatch blocks, and the latest thing is, well, a snatch ring. It essentially allows you to double the power of your winch, which you'll see in a second. I might have one on this Forester, and it allows you to get into more tight positions, or positions that wouldn't allow you to do a direct pull and winch someone out. With that said, there is snatch blocks also, but I like something with less weight, less things to go wrong, and just an overall simpler system. So that's why I chose a snatch ring. Again, I'm rating my stuff for Subarus as we go out with Subarus, but if you're working on like a quarter-ton truck, you want a bigger snatch ring. And that moves us on to the next thing, a kinetic strap. You've probably seen these all over the internet for a lot of people using them in improper ways, but kinetic straps are one of your best friends when you're doing a recovery, especially in stuff like snow. This kinetic strap, again, is rated for Subarus. This would be pushing it on a 1 ton or even a quarter ton. But for Subarus, this works perfect. And why you want it to work perfect is, well, this is going to allow you to have that stretch and that little bit of extra energy to pull the vehicle out of the mud or the snow or so forth. So you do want to get one that is rated to the vehicles you off-road with, and particularly your vehicle, because you're going to be the one using your equipment most often. And it will ensure that the recovery goes smoothly. Because if you overrate your snatch strap, it's honestly just not going to work as well. It's not going to have that stretch and have that energy to pull you out. So be careful when selecting these, but they can be a very powerful tool. With that being said, I do also carry a static strap. This one in particular is used for a couple different things, but this is in theory just a static strap that is pretty thick. So this is essentially a tree saver. So if I'm winching off of something, again, I might have a winch in this car. We'll talk about that in a minute. I can go ahead and attach that to a tree and not damage the tree. If you're using a thin strap, you have a higher likelihood of damaging the tree. With that being said, a static strap is great if you're doing something where, again, you're using a winch. You do not want to use a kinetic line with a winch. It isn't going to work. It also allows you to position stuff, maybe like your snatch block on a tree, and allow you to maneuver yourself and set up for a better recovery. And then finally, we have the two things up here. First of all, I have a shovel. This is actually my snow shovel because it's winter out there right now, so I am bringing my snow shovel. But once we get into warmer weather, we'll be working in mud. That shovel won't do well, so I'll switch it out for something more like a spade shovel that's a little bit heavier. And then the second item you might see here is traction boards. Traction boards are an interesting one. They get a lot of hate because they're not going to get you unstuck out of everything, but they do have their use cases. I find a lot of people find them really effective in snow. If they've just started spinning a little bit and they haven't dug themselves a hole, they can go ahead, toss the MAXTRAXs in and pull themselves out of it. They actually provide good results. It's just, if you don't set them up properly, they're not going to do anything, like pretty much everything here. And as a little side note, these traction boards are actually really good also as setting up a dead man's anchor for a winch. And speaking of winch, let's go ahead and talk about mine. And well, like I said, my Forester does have a winch. A winch is an interesting one because it adds so much more capability with recovery. It's definitely not a necessity. The main reason I have a winch is because I find myself a lot of time going on adventures solo. When you're going on an adventure solo, you don't have another vehicle to go ahead and, well, use a kinetic strap on. So a winch is key to my ventures. And well, a winch isn't really necessary unless you really want to push the limits of your car and you know you're going to need it. And well, there you go. You now know exactly what I carry in my Forester on every adventure. If there's anything I missed or something else you carry in your recovery kit, let me know down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out the channel memberships for some exclusive perks. And just before we go, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Flat for Offroad for partnering with me on this video. All this gear you've seen in the video, as well as much more, is available on flatforoffroad.ca. And with that being said, I'll be seeing you guys in the next adventure, where maybe we might even use some of the recovery gear.